have a dream, oh, I have a dream. Red, white, and blue, fly free, fly free. I believe, oh, I believe. Will you dream with me? Do you dream of trout-filled springs, 200-year-old trees? Do you dream of keep?
Welcome to Changing Times. It is Wednesday, April the 26th. We are live at the Axe Media Group headquarters in Springfield, Missouri. And the day outside, it looks like it's sunny, blue skies, and it may rain this afternoon, but we're headed into some really warm days, Saturday and Sunday this week, probably in the 70s, and just great spring weather. So, hey,
I'm excited.
we have got a great show. I'm Lynn Morris.
I'm Louis Michael, sitting in for Don Blackard.
Yeah, you certainly are. And I tell you what, and we got a guest, Larry Ballard, again.
Hello.
So glad to have you back here. Folks, you don't want to miss this show. Make sure that you get a pencil and paper out. We're going to be talking about sponsors after a while, and you may want to take some information about our sponsors, but you also want to maybe take some notes. Louis, we don't do, you've been with us a long time now, and Don, and we don't do a lot of political things, and I don't really call this a political thing. We're going to be talking about the immigration border crisis in the United States. I'm going to say it's not political. I say it's a social issue, and we developed this show, Jim Wining and I developed this show to be about social issues and social causes and trying to find a positive solution or solutions to every one of those. We don't want to have a show where we're negative and then at the end of the show, we're not going to be able to bring you any hope unless we can come up with some positive solutions. And so that's what this show is all about, is trying to bring hope to people around the world, all 50 states. Good morning. And around the world, we got people listening and watching in other countries. And so this crisis really that we're going to be talking about, and I know, Larry, you wrote and you've written Liberty Crusade, and I didn't bring my book to show people, but that's the book. That's your first book. You've got number 2 and number 3 on the way. So I think right now this is some of the content in the book too,
Mm-hmm.
and so we're kind of previewing some of the book really. But I guess we really want to start out by just we know because we've been around long enough to know that America is today a culmination of all the different people that have immigrated into this country over all these years. I mean, we were the melting pot. We still are the melting pot. Unfortunately, for a long time, we had people coming in, I believe, all over the world coming in the right way. Today, we really don't have any rules. It's just kind of like an open, porous border where good people can come in, but also people that we don't want to come in, they can come in too. And so it's going to continue to present more and more problems.
Isn't that the main focus, though? It's not a matter of who's coming in. We want people to come. That's okay, but do it the right way, not just have an open border where everybody's rushing the front of the line and stepping over those that are trying to do it the right way.
Yeah, and how did immigration kind of play into our American history, kind of from the beginning to where we see it today?
Okay. We're a godly nation. The people who came here and founded this country came here because they wanted freedom. They wanted to be able to have private property. They wanted to be able to have voting rights. They didn't want to have to be under the king's financial system, their central bank of England. So they came here, and they came from all over the world. And the Statue of Liberty basically tells us why they came. They came because they wanted freedom, the freedom that we offered. In Europe, there were so many different ethnicities, so many different religions, so much diversity that the people squabbled and fought all the time, and the economy was bad. So they came here to have opportunity. And basically, America became the melting pot. And we needed those immigrants in the beginning because we had to build infrastructure. And it took a lot of people back in those days because we didn't have the automation we have now.
Right.
But eventually we got to the point that we were saturated. But between 1924 and 1965, this is a fact that very few people know, we stopped all illegal immigration, 100%, because our infrastructure was built. We were getting to the point that the economy was being drugged down by the poor people that were coming in. They had health issues. They didn't have any money. They didn't speak the language. It became a real burden on the society. And there were so many of them that we couldn't adequately assimilate them into the American culture. Their cultures were beginning to take over. So we cut immigration out. And that was basically where we were up until recently, when now we have this massive influx coming in. And what is it doing? It's doing the very same thing that it did before. It's saturating our economy, and it's hurting us in a multitude of different ways.
Well, you know, one of the things that you think about, I know at one time, I think everyone that immigrated in, they wanted a better life. And I think they still want that today. But they were prepared to work hard and really just they thrived. People thrived when they came over here. There was a land of opportunity that everyone could increase their lifestyle just thousandfold. And today, though, when I look at a lot of the people coming over here, I'm not even sure if they're going to contribute to working. You know, if we weren't $30+ trillion in debt, maybe we could afford to house these people and continue to fund them with all our programs, our healthcare and everything that we have, education. But it gets to be a real close spot of whether we can actually continue to afford all these people or not. If they're not going to contribute, that's another problem. So what do you think, Larry, has kind of driven this thrust for all these illegal immigrants being able to come over?
I need to make an apology to you, and I need to give you some background before I answer the question. My focus is that I died in 1968 in a near-death experience, and God gave me this assignment, and I was supposed to study all my life to get ready for the tipping point when America was going to be transitioned into a godly kingdom. So everything I do comes from my Christian foundation, but it is political because the political system is invading our personal lives. So the answer to that question is that what we have happening right now that's allowing this, it's that Washington is nothing but political theater. And I want to read you a quote, and it'll tell you, in essence, why we have not stopped this immigration issue like we did in 1924. This is a quote from the Council on Foreign Relations, and it says, "The Council on Foreign Relations is the American branch of a society which originated in England and believes, keywords, national boundaries should be obliterated and a one world rule established." And that was from none other than Carol Quigley, member of the CFR and college mentor of none other than President Clinton. And that was in the book Hope and Tragedy. So basically, we have a situation where our political leaders have been co-opted by money and by the promise of power, and they have this agenda, the agenda of the global elite, to basically end not only the sovereignty of the United States, but the sovereignty of every nation in the world, because they want to implement a one world government that undoubtedly is going to be a dictatorship. So I need to be very frank with people and say, this immigration issue is a covert war. And I'm going to show you why it's nothing less than an invasion. We may not see bombs going off, we may not see airplanes flying over, but this is a war. It's a covert war. And the people need to understand that, because we're going to have to stand up at some point in time, and we're going to need to know what's going on. The truth will set us free. So every show that I do, I'm trying to wake the people up to the issue that's underneath what they see on the surface, the core issue that's driving it. And in this instance, it's the fact that there is a desire to end the sovereignty of the United States of America. And any nation that doesn't have a border has no nation to be sovereign over. And that's what they're doing to us. They're destroying everything that America originally stood for.
Well, Larry, you know, one of the things I was reading your notes, and you have a lot of neat slides. And sorry that we can't put those slides up. We'll be able to start doing that hopefully. But you know, United Nations. I don't think they're our friend either, are they?
Absolutely not.
But we have so many people, especially in the government, that depends and supports the United Nations. As far as I know about the United Nations, I used to collect stamps, and I've got all the United Nations stamps. Okay, so I had a big stamp collection, and I had all the stamps from the United Nations, and they were kind of pretty. But now I see as they really kind of want to destroy the world. They actually, in your notes, I read that the United Nations has this idea of combining the United States, Canada, and Mexico into one region, one country, borderless, you know.
Just a North American.
Yeah. And then I think they have like maybe five more, maybe 5 or 6 different regions around the world that they're all kind of putting together, you know. But I think there's another plan. I think there's a God's plan. But so the government probably does not want to stop this, right?
No. They plan to have an invasion. We've never had a situation where hundreds of thousands of people were coming across at one time. I want to go back to something that you said. You were talking about the government wanting to form what's called the Amero Union. Well, the bottom line is that those people, when I read that quote from the CFR, here's the tell. Every member of Congress who has any power whatsoever belongs to the Council on Foreign Relations. And what that means is, by default, they have agreed to live by their edict. So that means that most of the power in Washington is standing for what the CFR stands for, which is to end all sovereign nations. So by my definition, Washington, the power structure in Washington is controlled by the global elite, which is in turn controlled by the UN. So that goes back to what you were saying a second ago. So the UN wants to have, it's the number that you were speaking of is 10 nations. And later on, we'll talk about how God knows everything before the beginning. And basically, the UN wants 10 non-sovereign trading blocks. And we'll get into that a little later in this presentation.
Wow. You know, and I was just thinking about this, as all these people, and I'm sure there's lots and lots of good people are coming over. And you see their families, you see the little kids, you see the wives and things like that. And obviously they're wanting a better life. But I was just thinking about, you remember during COVID, we all had to get these little cards. And if you didn't have vaccinated, then you couldn't fly. You couldn't do this. You couldn't do that.
Couldn't move around the country.
No. And so this I keep in my billfold. It tells me when I got my first shot, my second shot, my booster shots. It's my record. Okay. But all those people that have come over, there was no requirement, no request to have any kind of documentation on their health, any vaccines they've ever had in their life. Probably they haven't had many, but we were so worried about United States people infecting other people. But gosh, we had all these people coming over here, and where do they end up, Larry? They don't just end up right there on the border, do they?
No.
They go all over the United States. Yeah. They bust them everywhere, and they have no records. We don't know what kind of criminal record or any kind of personal record they have. They don't have records.
Are they vetted at all?
No, a lot of them are not vetted.
We're off script, but I'm going to answer. I'm going to answer your question. Man, it's a war. So you have to know history to interpret what is happening today. So I'm going to take you back. There were 2 wars fought between England and China, and they were called the Opium Wars. And what they did is England wanted to pacify China. So they inundated it with opium. Think of what's happening now. These people coming across the border have been basically given an invitation.
Bringing their fentanyl.
And China is behind providing that fentanyl. They are doing to us what the Anglo-Saxon British did to them. The playbook just plays over and over. God says there's nothing new under the sun. They saw what was done to their nation that caused 100 years of humiliation, and now they're doing that to us. So these people who are coming through, it would be so simple to stop this. It's not funny. I want to give you an analogy. Think that you're at home and you get an envelope in your mail, and it's an invitation, not to a wedding, but it's an invitation to say, would you like to come to America? Would you like to live in America? Would you like to have the freedom and the benefits that exist in America? Well, all you have to do is go down to such and such a location and sign up, and we're going to give you an all expenses free trip to America. You'll join a caravan. We'll give you clothes. We'll give you shoes. We'll give you food. We'll give you water. We'll give you transportation. And we'll take you to the border. And then our border security guards will open-armedly take you in and escort you into the country where you will stay forever. And it doesn't make any difference if you had a COVID shot, if you have disease, if you have tuberculosis. We promise
If you're a pedophile.
Yep, we promise we'll feed your kids. We'll give them baby formula. Oh, but at some point in time during COVID, we didn't have baby formula for American
we ran out
citizens.
for Americans.
So they get special privileges. So basically, all we really have to do is, we'll get to this in detail at the end, is take the invitation away. If they didn't get that invitation to come here, to be escorted up here across that border, they simply wouldn't be here because they would not have the means to come. This is millions and millions of dollars required to send caravans of 200, 250, 300,000 people at a time.
How do we stop that?
Let's wait to the end, because, but that is what this is all about.
You're saying that we got to stop that invitation.
Yes,
So,
and there's a way to do it.
And who's funding all this? Is the United States, but other countries, some of our enemies funding these caravans?
Well, the name you hear all the time is George Soros.
Right.
But basically think of it as a pool of money from the global elite. The global elite controlled all the central banks, and then that feeds into the UN with the World Bank and the IMF. And so if you've got all the money in the world, all those taxes that are being paid by people all over the world funneling into the UN, they are indirectly siphoning that money off to the George Soroses and to the other foundations. So it gets, it's black money, it gets hidden, but basically it's coming from the global elite, from the central banking system.
Wow. Okay.
So we take the invitation away, and let's go back to what you were saying before. And that is, there's more to this immigration issue than we think about. It involves the entire world, not just us.
Because Europe's getting the influx too,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So they're both ways.
Yes.
The United States and Europe.
The entire world, but we're the two key pins.
Yeah.
So going back to what you said about the UN, here's something that they're trying to do. They're trying to get an initiative passed that says that, ready, immigration is a human right. So basically they're saying, you want to come? You can come. And I'll go back to something you were saying before about the Mayoral Union. That process started under George Bush Sr., where he met in a secret meeting at Baylor University with the president of Mexico and the president of Canada, and under something that at that time was called the Security and Prosperity Partnership, and also called the Mayoral Union. They were going to do to America exactly what was done to Europe, where 28 nations in Europe came into a trade agreement, and finally they morphed into a new constitution. Several of the countries voted against that constitution, but they were vetoed, and basically they went from sovereign nations to now being under Brussels, under a communist socialist constitution. That's what they were trying to do to America. And most recently, Biden has now tried to reestablish that. And if the Mayoral Union was fully put in place, here's what would happen. They were putting bureaucrats into our government, getting ready for that, to pass laws on transportation, law enforcement, agriculture, banking, manufacturing, construction, education, immigration, and military. In other words, between them and the UN, they were putting laws into place that superseded the laws of our nation and of our Constitution. If that isn't surrender, I don't know what is. That takes away the sovereignty of this nation. And now you mentioned Europe. So what happened in Europe is Mr. Obama, he basically orchestrated this. That's a long story, but he orchestrated the Arab Spring. And the intent of that relates directly to what we're talking about today, to cause the refugee crisis. So the Syrian refugees left, and they went to Europe in massive caravans, just like are happening here. But it was even worse than here, because they were Muslims, and they could have multiple wives. And so each Muslim is having 2 or 3 times more children than the average person in Europe that are indigenous. And so what's going to happen out of that process is the demographic statistics that are coming out say, as those who know history like I do know, that there was a 1,400-year war between Islam and between Christianity. and it never achieved the goal that they wanted, which was to take over Christendom. But now the demographics say that in one generation, through the massive amount of births that are happening, that Europe will be a Muslim majority nation under Sharia law. Europe will have fallen to Islam in one generation without a single bullet being fired. This is a war, folks.
And Larry, that could happen in the United States because our population is such that we're not reproducing enough children to sustain our growth, and it's actually decreasing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people choose not to get married or not to have children, and so there's a certain number you have to continue.
1.6.
1.6, and we're lower than that, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
We're maybe 1.2, 1.4, something like that, and so that's a problem. That could happen here too.
And that's the intent. Go back to what we started in 1924 to 1965. We stopped immigration for that very reason. There were too many people coming in for them to be assimilated. And now it's not just South America. We've got people coming in from China, people coming in from the Middle East, people coming in all over. And the burdens that it places on our society are astronomical. And we simply cannot cultivate that many people from that many different portions of the world with that many different languages into our society. And here's the key. We were founded as a Christian nation. Most of those people coming in are not Christians. They have totally different belief systems than we have, and it is going to morph this country into something that we won't even recognize.
You know, and one of the things I want the people to think about this, what you're saying today, because if we had all the money that we need in our country to help everyone, but I think of a lot of people that I know just in Christian County, Greene County, Southwest Missouri, around Missouri, that really we have a lot of citizens that are suffering. They don't have enough food. We're going to have least of these on. That's our food pantry, our only food pantry in Christian County. We're going to have them on in May, and they're feeding more people every week. It's just a record number of people that just don't have enough money to buy food. And so if we could take care of our seniors, our veterans, those poorer people, and we could take care of them, then I'd be glad to help take care of more people. But the problem is we don't take care of our own people in this country. I believe that we don't do a good job, and we forsake our own people.
Mm-hmm.
Many of them military people served our country, and then we don't take care of them the way we should. And so therefore, that's what kind of bothers me about reaching out and trying to help more people. You need to help your own first, and then you help everybody else that you can help. I wish we had that philosophy.
Well, you just described what I call an atrocity. We've got American veterans sleeping on the streets, while we've got people coming in from other countries invading us, being put up in 5-star hotels.
Right.
I mean, if that is
Quite a contrast.
Yes, and that's just horrible. And before we move on, I want to finish this whole idea of this is an invasion, and I want to take us to the Bible. God knows the beginning before the end, or the end before the beginning. So this is out of Revelation 17:12, and I'm going to read it to you. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which has received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. Now, what am I referring to? That we can find that exact description in the UN documents that say that their goal is to establish a 10-nation coalition, a trading bloc that is now servile. They've lost their independence, and these kings will be over those nations for a short period of time during what? The beast system. So the ultimate goal here is to establish the beast system. We have to stop this before it can get to that point. And God has a plan to see to it that we do stop it. But that's where the culmination of what they're trying to do is trying to take us to where America is no longer sovereign. The entire world is controlled by one world government that has become a dictatorship controlled by the beast.
I have to interrupt real quick on behalf of Jim Whining, the president of ACTS. He wanted me to ask you this question. Do you have an understanding, or will the U.S. break up into pieces into different regions?
Not in my opinion, no.
Okay.
I believe there's some things coming. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to jump to the end of this presentation.
The question was whether or not the U.S. would break into pieces
Yes.
due to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what's going to happen is there are events happening that have to do with something called BRICS. It's a 5-nation coalition that is organizing in order to get rid of the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. Then there's another entity that's forming called Sandman. And what that is now that initial group of 5 nations has become 100 nations. And they are announcing that they are going to announce a date soon in which all of those nations are going to go off of the U.S. dollar. So that is going to have a catastrophic consequence to the U.S. We're going to have an absolute financial collapse. At the same time, what's happening is if they're going to have their one world government, the United States and China have to be neutered. So basically, through COVID and a number of other things that have happened, the supply chain is being pulled away from China. So China is losing its power. We're losing our power. And that has to happen. That's where the good news comes in. Because going back to the Bible again, it says that the kingdoms of man shall fall. That means communism is going to fall. That means capitalism is going to fall. Now, if I wanted to build a new house on my property and there's just one location that's really got the view right where my house sits now, I'd have to tear my house down and build a new foundation. That's what's got to happen here. So God's going to allow that financial shift to take place. That's going to collapse the UN. That's going to collapse the central banking system in the world. That's going to give us an opportunity to come back in and fix all of these issues all at one time, because we're going to be able to have the kingdom of God, because the kingdom of man is going to fall communism and capitalism, and it's going to lead us into a new economic system that is the absolute converse of the one that we're under now. And it's going to see to it that this problem is fixed at the root. Because out of that, and it's a long whole 2 or 3 show series, what's going to happen is the wealth is going to be distributed fairly equally to all nations. That ends the need for these people to leave their country and come here. That ends the need for the caravans to come by the hundreds of thousands, because they could have a decent living and stay in the country that they're in and have the culture that they grew up in. So the invasion eventually stops.
Wow. So it's going to be time to take a break and talk about our sponsors. But I want to thank Jim Whining for asking that question. He is our CEO and of Acts Ministry and attorney and a bishop for our group. And so we really appreciate that question. So I just want people to open their eyes, open their ears, and make sure that you're understanding what's going on. Larry, before we go to our sponsors, I want people to know you were predicting the fall of all the banks before the first 2 or 3 banks started falling in this country and Europe. You were telling me that before we could even get you on our show, and you were telling me that. That's in your book. That's in your book, Liberty Crusade. And so this man, I really do believe you are a prophet. You are a prophet of Christ telling you what's going to happen during the time that you're in that dying process or basically dead, and you're getting all this information. A lot of us aren't getting that information. And so I really do appreciate that. But we have 3 great sponsors. So don't go away, because we're going to go right back into this very important topic. But we have 3 great sponsors that really help us in our show. Brad Pistow, our first sponsor, is Trinity Insurance Financial Services, located in Ozark, Missouri. And his phone number is 417-581-9222, 581-9222. If you call that number, they will give you a free book. He's written 2 books, Safe Money Matters and Bulletproof. Both of them are #1 best-selling Amazon retirement books. And they'll send you a book. They'll send you all kinds of information. He's licensed in 3 states, but he has friends and allies in all 47 other states. So you can call him and get information. We'll hopefully have him on our show. He is so busy. We were trying to get him on our show twice a year just to give people information about retirement planning, because he is the guy to go to. I use him. Several people in Don Blackard's family uses, several people in my family. I have not lost 1 penny, not 1 penny. not $1.
Any nickels?
No nickels. I haven't lost anything. I haven't lost any sleep over my retirement income. It continues to increase during these times, and it's just amazing.
Is he an Ozark boy or Christian County? Was he born and raised there?
Well,
or?
he went to Southwest Baptist. He graduated from Southwest Baptist, so I think he's probably pretty much local. Went to Texas, and then
He's been in Ozark a long time.
Yeah, lived in Ozark a long time. Lives out there by the state veterans cemetery out by Lake Springfield.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, Brad Pistow, certified fiduciary financial planner. Our second sponsor is a guy that we do have on our show, John Whittaker. So John Youngblood and John Whittaker, that's Youngblood Motor Group. That's in Springfield, Missouri. They're located on South Campbell. My last two Grand Cherokee Jeeps come from them, but they sell Toyotas. They sell not Toyotas. They sell Kias. They would
Scratch that.
They wouldn't. They probably would not sell it.
They do on their used lot.
And their used lot,
They've
yeah.
got
So
some.
that's
So
what I'm
fair.
talking about. On their used lot, they have.
They've got everything you can imagine at Walnut Lawn and Campbell. Their used lot
That's
has
right.
got 100 shiny cars out
Yeah,
there. They're
I'd say
beautiful.
100 plus cars. Always, most of them are certified cars. That means they've gone through them thoroughly. And when you drive off the lot, you're not going to have something go wrong the first 30 days or so. You're going to be able to drive for a long time. So used cars on one side of South Campbell, new cars on the other. And let's go back to Nissan and Kias. That's what they sell.
That's right.
And they're very good cars. These guys are just great people. Been in business over 44 years.
One of
in
the longest
Southwest-
family car dealerships around, isn't it?
I'd say about the longest, but who knows, 1 or 2 years difference, but absolutely great people. So I recommend them. I'm going to be buying my next car from them too. So that's how I feel about
You can
them.
even order online like a pizza.
Oh yeah. And they'll deliver it to you. You never have to even go to the lot. They'll do everything online and deliver the car to you.
Because sometimes that's the most anxiety-driven part of getting a new vehicle is going to the lot. And they don't mean for it to be that way. I think it's just over the years, the decades, we've all kind of got that in mind that, okay, here we go haggling.
Oh yeah.
But they're great to deal with. Nice guys over there. John Whittaker, he was a jewel having him in. And
Oh,
I look
yeah.
forward to meeting John Youngblood one of these days.
Yeah,
But
we'll have
they got
him
a great
on.
name.
We'll have both of them on sometime. They have a 72-hour guarantee, so they can deliver a car to your driveway or to your place of business, and you've got 72 hours to drive it around. Put the wife and kids in there, the dog, just drive it around. If you don't like it, they'll bring you a different car. I mean, nobody else does that. So they have some great, and my car always looks better when I get through, when I take my car in for service, that it's always cleaner because they wash it, they detail it every time. It's just
Get all those crumbs out of the seat.
Oh yeah, they do that for me because I'm eating McDonald's cheeseburgers or something. So anyway, and our third sponsor is you, Louis Michael.
Hey,
Yeah, so
proud to be here.
Yeah, so you are absolutely a tremendous realtor. I know I've been trying to get a hold of you, and you've been really, really busy selling homes and selling properties and things like that.
You're talking about being busy. Sometimes when we sell a home, I had one closing yesterday, and I got up at 6:30 in the morning to go mow the yard for the people that they had already sold their lawnmower.
You mowed the lawn?
And the other realtor was like, "Are you all going to mow the yard before y'all move?" And I was like, "Yep, we'll have it done." So guess who was over there doing it? I'm not bashful.
No. So one of the hardest workers there is, Louis Michael. If you need to buy a home or sell a home,
Have your yard mowed.
call Louis Michael. He works for the firm, FIRM, the firm in Ozark, Missouri. A tremendous, I call it maybe kind of like a boutique.
It's a boutique
realty company. And
we love to name all the properties that we sell. We give them little nicknames and we highlight them. And of course, we've got decades of experience. The Parnham family started the business, and then Sonia Wells, the daughter, took it over and renamed it the firm. And she's a great gal. And man, talk about nice for me because I can go in and bounce things off of all of them. I've only been doing it. I've had my license about 10 years, but practicing about 5 or 6.
Yeah.
But decades of experience. I get all kinds of help there and great advice. So there's a big team involved.
Well, and you can call, if you need Louis Michael, you can call 417-986-1086.
988-1086.
Yeah, 1086.
You were writing that in the dark last night, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. But no, I tell you what, just a great guy. If you buy, we've already created this plan. This is a tremendous plan. If you buy a home from Louis right now, if you buy a home the rest of this summer, the rest of this year, buy a home and I bet you won't know hardly anybody on your block. I mean, most people, when they move into a new area, they don't hardly know anybody. You're going to know all your neighbors up and down the street because Louis Michael's going to do an Elvis concert in your backyard. People
No
are going to
jumpsuit.
they're going to bring their lawn chairs, and maybe you can just make a few cookies or something, and just have a little refreshments, and you will have a concert of your life because this guy is a professional Elvis impersonator. I mean, he's travels all over the world singing.
I don't put on the jumpsuits anymore or anything. I can sing the music. As a matter of fact, I'm closing on one today out in River Cut. And the plan is next weekend we're going to have a big driveway party.
Okay, see, there you go. That's what you want to call Louis Michael. But anyway, 3 great sponsors. Still working on some more sponsors.
Well, don't forget Choosing to Live too.
Oh my gosh,
that's the reason I'm even here. Is I sell real estate and everything else, but Choosing to Live. It's neversuicide.org. I just want to encourage people, if you're struggling out there with anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, or PTSD, give me a call or log on to neversuicide.org. There's lots of great tools and information there for you. I get calls every week. We just want to help people. We want to encourage you to live. Nothing out there is so bad that you can't get past, I promise. Never wave the white flag. You've got to have a reason to live. And let me tell you, there's lots of them. Let me just remind you. So I've been there. I understand it. I get depressed too. I've had some rough days, but we got to push through them together. We're all in it together. So choose to live.
Sure. I tell you what, Choose to Live is a great organization, and my family supports that. I know Don Blackard does. And
yeah, we're thankful.
So we're helping a lot of people. Louis' group is helping a lot of people because you always want to choose to live. And you've got an interesting story every once in a while, Louis. The people are very lucky and blessed when they hear your story because a lot of times you learn from other people's adversity and issues and problems, and you came through it, and that's why we want to provide hope for people out there around the world.
That's what it's about.
So
hope.
Yeah. So anyway, let's switch back to our topic again, border crisis. So we talked about the impact because all those border towns in Texas and wherever the borders are lying, it's causing tremendous problems.
It's a lot of strain
for those people.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the rest of the country? We're going to start seeing it too, aren't we? I mean, it's going to be. It's kind of like water. It's just going to keep spreading, isn't it?
It's affecting the very foundation of our nation. There's 7 spheres of influence. It's affecting every one of them. So think about why we came here in the first place. We wanted a Christian society. So when all these different cultures coming in that are not Christian, it's affecting the family, it's affecting patriotism because these people don't see America the way we do. There's all these different ethnicities coming in with different religious backgrounds. And look at what's happening in Christianity. It's almost dangerous to be a Christian in America today. And then we got our school systems. And at one point I moved when my kids were young to a different town because all the extracurricular activities were being cut. Why? Because they had to have a huge budget to have teachers to teach Hispanic, to speak all these different languages. It waters down our education system. And then look at the media. The media pushes all this stuff, it's a human right to come. We shouldn't stop these people. We don't have any right to stop them. And then you got the entertainment industry, and then you got all the politicians that have been bought and paid for. Now that is inculcating our entire society and morphing us. So instead of us assimilating them, they're assimilating us. But now we're going to move to, because this closes out, to the hope. And the one thing that controls all of those, and can make all of those issues go away, is if we get control of the monetary system and they no longer have the money to fund all of the things that they do. So as that collapse that I was talking about happens, and this is part of the answer that I should have given before, here's what's going to happen. China, for a multitude of reasons, is going to be relegated to being a regional superpower. There'll be no nation left in the world, not Russia, not India, not China, that will be able to bring the world back from the catastrophic collapse that is coming. So as Donald Trump said, America will come back and will be greater than ever. We're going to get control of the financial system, and we're going to basically be able to bring our manufacturing back. And if you control natural resources, so when Trump comes back, he'll give us our natural gas and our oil and our steel and our manufacturing back. That all converts into finished goods. And he's already put in place the trade agreements that take us from losing trade to profitable trade. That converts into money. So now when that process is complete, we have the money we need. That debt under something called Nasara is possibly going to be taken away, and we're going to have a situation where they've lost their control lever. If they lose the money, they lose the ability to control us. And that takes us into the solutions. So if you don't mind, I'll just walk you into the solution because I think we've only got a couple minutes left. So politics in America is nothing but show. When before Donald Trump came in, the Republicans and Democrats both passed bills saying we got to build a wall. The second Donald Trump comes in and they know he's really going to build a wall, everybody's against it. So bottom line is they send people down to the border, and it's just to get a publicity op. We could solve this thing so easily, it isn't funny. With one short bill that could be written on one piece of paper, we could solve this problem. Here's all we have to do. Remove the invitation. So you don't get that invitation in the mail that's saying, come to America and we'll feed you and we'll house you and we'll give you everything. Take it away. And how could we do it? You deny them access to the schools. They can't go to the schools. We're not going to deny them access to the healthcare system, but if you go to you can't use the emergency room as your doctor anymore. If you go to the emergency room, you're going to get treated because we're humanitarian Christians, but then you're going to be deported. So we're going to get them out of here. And you're not going to get a driver's license. Basically, all the things that allow you to come here and to get into our society and take away from the American citizens are going to be taken away. Build the wall. In chain migration. So what chain migration says, if you come in illegally, you've got a claim for your relatives to come in. Get rid of that. In catch and release, you come into this border, you get caught, you get deported. You come back again, you get arrested. We go to merit immigration, is what we've had for decades in this country, meaning that we wanted the best and the brightest to come in to make America that shining star that it was intended to be. And we want to end all the entitlements. So you come in, you're not going to get baby formula. You're not going to get put up at a 5-star hotel. And if you commit any crime, we're going to deport you. All of that can be put on one page. We don't need a 2,000-page document. All we have to have is a government that says we are not committed to ending all sovereign nations, in particular the United States, but we are a government that is intended to do this, to lift, equalize, and elevate the condition of all mankind. And when we do that, which is what America is going to do when we come back after this collapse, then those people won't need to come here, and the problem will be solved at the root generically, because people will be able to live in their home nations and have a decent standard of living, and America will be able to return to being the America of its founding roots. So unless you've got any other questions, that kind of takes us to the end.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is, so that sounds like tough love to me. That's, got a sheet of paper and you had a lot of things that you can't do and, and stuff like that. But honestly,
but is it worth it to them to follow those rules? I would think it would be.
Yeah. I mean, for our country to be what it really needs to be, I just thinking about like right now, our country, the United States, we buy natural gas, we buy oil from our enemies, and they're jacking the price up or lowering the quantity, million gallons here, lowering the quantities and things like that to make the price go up. Buying it from the enemies. We didn't do that. There was a time when President Trump was a president for about a year and a half, we were selling our natural gas and oil to all our other friendly countries, our allies. We're selling it to them and we're making money, but we're not overcharging them. And we had everything we needed here, and everything was much lower price. If we really wanted to help other countries, that's what we would be doing. But instead, we're doing the opposite. We're paying way too much, and that's taxpayers' money too that we're spending money on. And so, if we really wanted to help people, we just need to make those changes. And what you're believing is God told you that during this collapse, and we have to collapse the banks, we have to collapse a lot of stuff to restart. This is a restart, a rebirth, a rebirth of our country. You also talked about the United States and Israel are the two chosen countries that they're going to see it at the same time. And because the United States, throughout our history, we've always been generous with our inventions, all the things that we've come up with, we've shared around the world. There are countries, some of our enemy countries don't share anything. They don't share anything. And so they're trying to always steal our ideas, but they don't share anything. I think the reason why our country has always been blessed is we are based on Christian principles, and God knows that. And the fact that he knows that we try to help other people. And I think we'll continue to be blessed.
You brought us right to the perfect point to stop. God knows the end before the beginning, and he never does anything unless he tells us prophets and unless he gives us a foreshadow of what is to come. So here is what's going to happen. Here's the end game. But immediately following the Civil War, America went through a 34-year period where it became the greatest economic superpower in the world. It supplanted England that had a 300-year head start, and it had an economic system unique to the United States. We shared all of our technologies, just like you're saying, and all the nations of the world benefited, and their standards of living were rising. That system was called the American economic system, and that is the system that will be implemented in order to save the entire world. The world is at odds with one another. If we share the technology that's out there with all the other nations of the world, everybody will benefit, and this will generically just go away because there will not be that sense of urgency. I'm starving living in my nation. I have no hope. Everybody will have a better standard of living. And what it comes down to is basically we end globalization and we go to deglobalization, which is happening right before your eyes, folks. All of the manufacturing in China is leaving, not all of it, but large portions of it, and going to India, going to Mexico, going to the United States. That will solve the problem. It will spread the wealth around the world, and the problem will just generically go away.
Thanks for being here, Larry.
Yeah, very interesting, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that. Just believe in God, and I tell you what, there's going to be better times ahead, right?
Right.
Amen.
Right.
Choose to live.
Hey.
Do I hear a hallelujah? Can I get a who?